here to look at the Torah Parsha Matos, Amud Pei Zayin, Pei Zayin Seif Amud Daled. So let's just read what it says there, and we'll take it from there. So there it says like this: V'oid, the Alter Rebbe says, V'oid mevur be'etz Chaim Sharmem Aleph Perek Zayin, the Chachma Nikra Chayohi. The Eitz Chaim there it says that Sfiras HaChachma is called Chayohi. V'hamidos v'gam bino nikra garmohi, and the midos and even bino is called garmohi. Now he says v'chayoyi hainu oir v'garmohi hainu kelim chuluk. So the chayra, we have a shtickle problem. Derech klal, we say that garmohi refers to the kelim and chayohi refers to the oir. As in every sphera has the oir and the keli. So when we say ihu v'garmoyi chad, that's pshat, that the Eibishter and the kelim. Garmoyi is the kelim. The kelim in all the spheres. Ihu v'garmoyi chad, the Eibishter and the kelim are one. Ihu v'chayoyi chad, the Eibishter and the oiris are chad. So b'derech klal chayoyi is the oiris of the spheres, and garmoyi is the kelim of the spheres. But here in Eitz Chaim steht anders. Here in Eitz Chaim it says no, that Sfiras HaChachma Bichlalusa is called Chayohi, and all the rest of the spheres, the Midos and even Bina, Bichlalusa is called Garmohi. So what is it? Is Chayohi Oiris and Garmohi Kelim? Or is Chayohi Sfiras HaChachma and Garmohi the rest of the spheres? So he explains, the answer is the Hainu Lefi, Shebechachma Gama Keli Hu Bevchinas Bitul Gamri Kayachma. The teretz is Shnei Emes. The biur b'derech klal is that Chayohi is the oiris and Garmohi is the kelim. That's the emes. Garmohi, the iketaich from Garmohi is kelim, and the iketaich of Chayohi is oiris. Why are we saying that in Sfiras HaChachma? Why does the Eitz Chaim say that Gam Sfiras HaChachma, including the kelim of Sfiras HaChachma, is called Chayohi? This is because in Sfiras HaChachma, even the Keli is b'vchinas bitul legamri. So there's a chiluk between Sfiras HaChachma and all the other spheres. In all the other spheres, the Keli of those spheres, the Keli of Sfiras HaChesed, the Keli of Sfiras HaBina, is more of a mitzias. So therefore the kelim and all the other spheres are called garmohi. That's all. And only the oiris of the other spheres are called chayohi. Ashek in Sfiras HaChachma, the mile of Sfiras HaChachma, the uniqueness of Sfiras HaChachma is that even the keli sheb Sfiras HaChachma is betachlis habitul, and even the keli could be called chayohi. So it's not a stir. The Eitz Chaim is right. Sfiras HaChachma, since even the keli within Sfiras HaChachma, even the kelim of Chachma, are betachlis habitul more than any other sphere. So in Chachma past, that the whole sphere, even the kelim sheb Sfiras HaChachma, could be called chayohi. But in all the other spheres, the kelim are only garmohi, and the oiris are chayohi. And if you're Zois, this that we're saying that in Chachma there's a Maila, that in Chachma even the Kelim are b'vchinas bitul legamri, and the Kelim could be called Chayohi. That's based on what it says in Tanya, Perek Lamed Hey, in the Hagah. What does it say there in Tanya, in Hagah? It says, like I heard from my teacher, the Maggid of Mezrich, Pirush v'tamam Chossid Beitz Chaim she'orin soy baruch hu eine misyachet afilu ba'olam ha'atzilus el al deis labshusu itchilu b'sfiras HaChachma. Why is that? V'ayne mishum she'ein soy baruch hu echad ha'emes shehu levadahu ve'ein zu lasoi v'zohi madregas HaChachma. In other words, that there in Tanya it explains that this is the madrega of Chachma. Chachma is a madrega where it's herzichon hu levadahu ve'ein zu lasoi, this tachlis habitul, and therefore dafke Chachma is a keli for the union of Ein Sof. Ein Sof is mislabish in olam ha'atzilus only through Chachma, tchila, in Sfiras HaChachma. Dafke Chachma is, call it a keli. Dafke Chachma is where it's possible for Ein Sof to be mislabish, to be shayder. That's because Zuhi Madregas HaChachma. Chachma is a Madrega was Herzachon, Hu Levad Hu Vein Zulasa, this Tachlis HaBitul. So B'meila, going back to what he says here in the Ketatayr in Matos, that's the reason why the Eitz Chaim says that in Sfiras HaChachma, the whole sphere is called Chayohi, not just the Eiris. Even the Kalim of Sfiras HaChachma is also called Chayohi because the Kalim of Chachma is not like the other spheres. The Kalim of Chachma are B'tachlis HaBitul. And that's what he's bringing here in our Ha'ara in 28. Mitzad Echataka, there is a Kalim. Bitul betachlis. Ad shenikra chayohi, which is mitzayin to look at the Torah, like we just said, where he's mitzayin to Tanya Perek Lamed. So I want to focus beikir on this line here, where he says in the Ha'ara, in Ha'ara 28, Elo shakeli b'vchinas bitul betachlis k'moi ha'or ad shenikra chayohi. That the mile of the keli in Sfiras HaChachma is that it's b'vchinas bitul betachlis k'moi ha'or ad shenikra chayohi. What's this word ad shenikra chayohi? We have, like we said before, we have iyu v'garmoi chad, iyu v'chayohi chad. So usually kalim are called garmoi. Iyu v'garmoi chad, the Eibishter and the kalim are chad. And in Sfiras HaChachma, the keli is anders. In Sfiras HaChachma, the keli heist nicht garmoi. But we can even call the Keli Chayohi. Is it just another name? Of course not. What's the Oimek HaDvorim in the fact that we are calling the Kelim in Sfiras HaChachma Chayohi? And also, Pasha, to better understand, what's taka the Maila of the Bitul Shebes Sfiras HaChachma? It's a Chidush, that in Chachma is fara mer Bitul than all the other spheres. What's taka the Maila? What's the Maila in Sfiras HaChachma? In the Bitul Sheba. So Ulai Yeshloimar, I want to maybe explain this based on a word that I heard from my Zayda, Reb Nosson Gourarie. Nosson Gourarie was a Bavusta Maskil in Chassidus, lived in Montreal. So I heard a word from him that I think ties in here very well and sheds a lot of light and oimek on this whole sugya. He said that if you look in Tanya, it's two places where it explains the Maila of Sfiras HaChachma. The first place is in Perek Beis. Perek Beis, he says that a neshama is a chelik elika mimal mamish. Mamish chelik elika. And he goes on to explain that the neshama is nimshach from the Eibishter's Chachma. So the Chayra, it's not understood. Tzad Echad, you're saying the Neshama is a Chelek Eleka Mimal Mamish. It's Mamish from the Eibishter himself. And then you go on to say that it's coming from Chachma. Chachma is only a sphere of the Eibishter. It's one of the spheres in Atzilus. It's not the Eibishter himself. So to explain this, the Alter Rebbe there goes on to say, the iyu chakim v'loi b'chachma yediyah elohu v'chachmasei echad. Which goes of Rambam, shu amada hu ha'yediyah hu ha'yedua. That by the Eibishter, hu v'chachmasei echad. The Eibishter's chachma is not like our chachma. By a person, chachma, not the person himself. The ha'adam atzmai, the nefesh atzmai. And then you have chachma. Chachma is a kayach of the nefesh. Of the nefesh. We don't say by a person who v'chachmasei echad. By the Eibishter we say, the Rambam says, hu amada, hu hayedeya, hu hayodua, or bekitzur, hu v'chachmasei echad. The Eibishter himself, the Eibishter Ein Sof, v'chachmasei echad. So therefore, when the neshama is nimshach from chachma ilah, when the neshama is nimshach from the Eibishter's chachma, it's not only coming from the Eibishter's chachma. It's coming from the Eibishter himself, because hu v'chachmasei echad. Hu amada, hu hayedeya, hu hayodua. So steht in Tanya Perek Beis. So that's one place in Tanya where it's explaining the Maila of Chachma. that we say by Chachma, Hu v'Chachma echad. Chachma is chad with the Eibishter himself. And that makes that the neshama coming from Chachma isn't only coming from Chachma, the neshama is a chelik elakami mal mamash. And then the other place in Tanya is, which we quoted before, Perek Lamed Hey, the Hago, that Ein Sof Baruch Hu Einem Misyachad Afilu B'Olam Hu Atzilus El Al Dei Slapshusay Tchila B'Sfiras HaChachma. That Dafke in Chachma is Ein Sof is mislabish. Why? Because Ein Sof is Echad Ha'emes Shula V'Adu V'Ein Zulasay, and as we said before, in Chachma there is the bitul of Hula V'Adu V'Ein Zulasay, and Chachma is a keli therefore for Ein Sof. So what does it say in Perek Lamed Hey? That Ein Sof is mislabish, is shoyre dafke in Chachma, mitzad the bitul shabesfiras HaChachma. That a serzachon Hula V'Adu V'Ein Zulasay. So my Zayda asked, is this two different inyanim, or is it one and the same? What it says in Tanya Perek Beis, Hu v'Chachma echad, that there's a mile in the Eibishter's Chachma, that it's not like a regular person's Chachma, rather Hu v'Chachma echad, the Eibishter's Chachma is one with him himself. Is that the same thing? In other words, like what it says in Perek Lamed Hey, that Ein Sof is mislabished in Sfiras HaChachma, it's at the inyan of Hula V'Adu V'Ein Zulasay, or is Tanya Perek Lamed Hey a Hisofa and a Chidush over the word of Hu v'Chachma echad? And so he explained that it's a Chidush. That Hu v'Chachma echad is one word, one Ilui, Hu v'Chachma echad. And then Perek Lamed Hey is a Chidush al zeh. Perek Lamed Hey is steht a word noch tiefer or noch mehr wie Hu v'Chachma echad. That there, what he's saying, that Ein Sof is Shiurim, mislabish, and Sfiras HaChachma, that's above and beyond, it's more than the inyan of Hu v'Chachma echad. So the pshat is like this. Chlal, when we say Ihu v'chayoy chad and Ihu v'garmoy chad, let's understand this. Ihu v'garmoy chad. So Ihu is the Eibishter himself. The Eibishter himself, Ein Sof, who's pashat b'tachlis apshitus, v'lav mikol ilein midas Ihu klal. The Eibishter has no toya, the Eibishter has no geder. Achdus pshuta, havoya pshuta, that's Ihu. Garmoy, we said, is the kelim. Kelim of the Sfiras. Kelim of the Sfiras is the pshat, the metzias of the Sfira. When we say Sfiras HaChachma, Sfiras HaBina, any of the Sfiras, the Keli of the Sfira is the metzias of the Sfira. Chesed is the inyan of Chesed. Chesed is not Gvura. Chesed has a description. Chesed has a geder. Chesed has a toyer. It means something specific. It's a dover mesuyam. Likewise, Bina, even Chachma, any of the Sfiras, the metzias of the Sfira, what it is, its description, its existence, that is the Keli. So B'meila we have like this. Ihu is Achdus Pshuta. Ihu is the Eibishter who has no Toyar, no Geder. Garmohi is the Kelim of the Sfiras, the Hainu, the metzias of the Sfiras. And we say, Ihu v'Garmohi chad. What's Pshat Ihu v'Garmohi chad? One's Achdus Pshuta, and one's Toyar, one's a Geder, one's a metzias Dvarma. So he explains in Pasach Eliyahu, in Torah Oir, and in the Bir of Vayolech Samech in Vayikra, that a Moshel al Zeh is from a Nefesh v'Guf. That a Nefesh v'Guf, the Nefesh and the Guf are Kirchek Mizrach Mimayrav. The Nefesh is the Inyan Ruchni. It's the Inyan of Chayes. Kulei Ruchni. And the Guf is a Dover Gashmi. Gebosser v'Atzoma is Menachim b'Kedeiro. So we have these two very different ideas. Nefesh, we have Guf, one's a Ruchni, one's a Gashmi. And yet what happens is that we have the Hislabshus HaNefesh B'Seich HaGuf. The Nefesh is Mislabish in a Guf, and you have a living person. A living person is a combination of a Nefesh and Guf. So this Nefesh and Guf, when they come together in a living person, they become one. They become one means that you cannot see Nefesh without Guf, and you cannot see Guf without Nefesh. In every inch of Guf, there's nefesh. The nefesh is in every chelik of the guf. And same thing, every part of the nefesh is b'seich haguf. We don't have a tchum, ad kan is the tchum ha-nefesh, and then ad kan is the tchum haguf. They're misachid. The nefesh and guf become one mitzias. They become one mitzias to the point that you can't be mechalek between them. You can't say, oh, here's the chelik ha-nefesh and here's the chelik ha-guf. No such thing. The nefesh v'guf, even though l'chatchila they're two opposite, different things, one's a ruchni, one's a gashmi, but when they come together in a living person, they become one. They become one ad kedei kach, like we said, that you can no longer differentiate and say, here's the chelik ha-guf, here's the chelik ha-nefesh, severt ein mitzias. So that's the mashal to explain the inyan of iyu v'garma yichad. Take iyu is the Eibishter himself, who's poshet b'tachlis hafshitus. Lav mikol ilein midis iyu klal. And garma is the kelim, that's the mitzias of the spheres. However, the pshat of iyu v'garma yichad is that they come together and they become one mitzias, they're misyached, they're misached al derech guf and nefesh. That once they come together, it's mamish betachlis hayichud. You can no longer say, here's the chelik hagarmohi and here's the chelik of the ihu. The ihu and the garmohi, they become one mitzias. You can't be machalik between them anymore. You can't say, here's the chelik of the ihu and here's the chelik of the garmohi. You can't say, here's the Eibishter himself and here's the sphira. The Eibishter and the spheres become one mamish until you can no longer be machalik between them. Al derech guf and nefesh. So that's the inyan of iyu v'garma yichad. So this is the first ilui that we have in the spheres of Atzilus. It's not like by a person. By a person, our kayches ha-nefesh, our kayches ha-nefesh. That's it, kayches ha-nefesh. It's not the nefesh itself. There's no hisachtus between the nefesh atzma and the kayches. There's the nefesh itself, the etzem ha-nefesh, which is a kaya, etzem, echad, ruchen, yupashut. And you have the kayches ha-nefesh. And they're two different things. But by the Eibishter, we have this first חידוש, this first ilui, that in all the spheres, not just in Chachma, in all the spheres, iyu v'garma yichad, the Eibishter himself, the etzem of the Eibishter, the pshitus of the Eibishter is misyachid with his spheres in a way of guf and nefesh until ef shelachalik b'neiim, you can no longer see this is the chelik of the iyu and this is the chelik of the garmohi, severt ein mitzias, severt ein zach. And this is the vort of Hu v'chachma echad. Hu v'chachma echad is in line with this explanation of iyu v'garma yichad. Hainu hach. Hu v'chachma echad means the Eibishter Hu, the Eibishter himself, the pshitus of the Eibishter, the insof of the Eibishter, v'chachma the metzius of chachma, is chad. It's mamish the inyan of iyu v'garma yichad, as we explained before. And then there's another word. We say ihu v'chayo yichad. Ihu v'chayo yichad means the ihu is the same ihu. The Eibishter himself, achdus pshuto, oirin sof, which lav mikol ilen midis ihu klal. The etzem of the Eibishter, v'chayohi. Chayohi is the oiris within the spheres, not the kalim of the spheres, but the oir within the spheres is chad. So when we say iyu v'chayo yichad, it's different to iyu v'garma yichad. And the nekudas hachiluk is iyu v'garma yichad, as much as we explained the Maila shebaseh, that it's al derech guf and nefesh, they become one mitzias ad she'iyef shelachalik b'neihem. But at the end of the day, it's shnei dvarim hamisyachti. There are two different things that are coming together. So take when they come together, it's betachlis hayichud and betachlis ha'isachdus. But sof kol sof, it's shnei dvarim hamisyachti. And the way my Zayda would say it in the lashon of the Alter Rebbe in the Bir on Beloy Sashbris, umikol makaim hu rak li. After all the iluyim in iyu v'garma yichad and hu v'chachma echad, la'achar kol zeh mikol makaim hu rak li. Still a kli. Take it's misyached with ihu, but it's shnei dvarim ha-misyachdim. At the end of the day, there's a guf and there's a nefesh, and they're misyached. there's a Keli, there's Garmoihi, there's Ihu, there's Misyachid Betachlis HaYichud. But Sof Kol Sof, it's Shtei Dvarim HaMisachtim. Mikol Mokim Hu Rak B'chinas Kli. There is the union of Kli. But Ihu V'chayoyi Chad, here the Chad is Al Derech Oiren Mo'ir. Ihu is the Mo'ir, Chayoyi is the Oiris. So we're not dealing with the Metzias of the spheres, we're dealing with the Oir. So since we're dealing with the Oir, so the Ihu V'chayoyi Chad is, the Chad here is Al Derech Oiren Mo'ir. The Chad between Oir and Moir is not like the Chad of Nefesh V'guf. The Nefesh V'guf is Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, two different entities that are coming together. But Oir and Moir, the Achdus, the Yichud between the Oir and the Moir is not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. The Oir Be'ikr is the Moir. It's the Hisgalus of the Moir. It's the Ispashtus of the Moir. It's not another thing from the outside that we're attaching to the Moir. The Oir is the Ispashtus of the Moir. The Oir is the Hisgalus of the Moir. When you take away the Moir, B'derech Memela, the Oir is bottled because the Oir isn't a Metzias La'atzmai. The Oir is just an extension of the Moir. So therefore, the Iyu V'chayoyi Chad of the spheres is Asach Tifer V'Iyu V'garmoyi Chad. Iyu V'garmoyi Chad, it's Taki Chad in a Oifen Niflo, Al Derech Nefesh V'guf, Ad She'i Efshel L'chalek B'neihem, Bat Sof Kol Sof, Mu Mikol Makoim, Hu Rak B'chinas Kli. There's Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. There's a Metzias of the Keli. There's something outside of Oir Ein Sof, which is becoming one with Oir Ein Sof. But Iyu V'chayoyi Chad is not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, it's Chad Mamish. The Oir is the Moir. The Moir is the Oir. The Oir is not a Metzias La'atzmai being attached to the Moir. It is a Spashtus and a Hisgalus of the Moir. That's the mile of Iyu V'chayoyi Chad over Iyu V'garmoyi Chad. So now, if you look in the Biron V'lo Sashbis, after he brings from Tanya Perek Beis, Hu V'chachma Echad, and he explains that it's the union of Iyu V'garmoyi Chad, as we just explained. So then there's a Hagah from the Tzemach Tzedek, where after this whole explanation of Hu V'chachma Echad, the Iyu V'garmoyi Chad, and how the Eibishter himself is one with Chachma, he brings over here like this. Agam shebetanyan is boyer shanashama nimshach b'bchinas chachma shehu hamado. K'may shaben nimshach moyachaav v'achachma b'bchinas klikana. So the Tzemach Tzedek is asking a question that l'chayra, even after the explanation of Hu V'chachma Echad in Tanya Perek Beis, it's not sufficient, because as we just said, even if we explain Hu V'chachma Echad, that the Eibishter is one with his spheres and one with Chachma, like Al Derech Nefesh V'guf, that they become one thing. But as we said before, but at the end of the day, Mikol Mokim Hu Rak B'chinas Kli. At Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, Chachma is still a Metzias outside of the Eibishter, separate from the Eibishter. It's becoming one, but Mikol Mokim Hu B'chinas Kli. So it's still not understood. What's the Ili, what's the mile of the fact that the Neshama is coming from Chachma, even after saying Hu V'chachma Echad? It's not enough, because even after Hu V'chachma Echad, Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim and Chachma Hu B'chinas Kli. So he goes on to say there, Achyesh Loimar, listen carefully, Ki af al pisha Chachma B'chinas Kli, even though Chachma is a Keli, which we said before, the pshat of that is, it's Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, Geblieben Epis HaMetzias, Mikol Makom, there's a new word. Besides for the fact that we said Hu V'chachma Echad, which wasn't enough, there's a new word. Mikol Makom Shoyre Bo Al Kol Ponim Ein Sof Baruch Hu Atzmai Shelamayla Me'achachma. Chossid B'Sefer Shebein in Perek Lamed Hey B'Hagah. Tzemach Tzedek is saying, if we introduce Perek Lamed Hey in Tanya, it says in the Hagah, it's going to be even better. The Neshama is not only coming from Chachma, the Atzilus, about which we say Hu V'chachma Echad, because Hu V'chachma Echad isn't enough. Because even after saying Hu V'chachma Echad, Mikol Mokim B'chinas Kli, Chachma is still a Kli. It's a dover nifrod which is being misached with the Eibishter, Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. So it's not sufficient. But if we introduce what it says in Tanya Perek Lamed Hey, then it's going to be even better. That's the חידוש that the Tzemach Tzedek is saying. Ach yesh loymar ki av al pi she'achachma b'chinas kli, which that's even after saying hu v'chachma echad, but mikol makom shoyre bo al kaponim ein soiv baruch hu atzmi shel hamayla me'achachma k'ma she'kosher b'sefer shel beinin in perek lamed hei b'hago. There's a new oimek here. V'lachein gam b'neshama hanimsheches miklei chachma ilo. So the neshama, which comes from Chachma, the keli of Chachma, but melubash gam kein ha'ora mibchinas ha'oir ha'melubash beklei ha'chachma ilo di'iyu v'chayohicha. So the way he explained Pshat is like this. That what's the Maila, what's the Ilui in Perek Lamed Hey over Perek Beis in Tanya? That in Perek Beis Tanya, we're just going with the Pasha to Ir v'gama yichad. Even in Chachma, hu v'chachma echad is Ir v'gama yichad. Shnei dvarim hamisachtim. Tak echad mamish. But shnei dvarim hamisachtim. The Maila of Perek Lamed Hey, that he says they're even in the Keli of Chachma, is that in Chachma it's different. In Chachma, it's mislabish in Chachma, not just is the Keli of Chachma doesn't just have the inyan of Ir v'gama yichad, but in the Keli of Chachma is melubesh the inyan of Iyu v'chayoyichad. The inyan of Iyu v'chayoyichad, that gufa in Chachma is melubesh even in the Keli of Chachma. In other words, based on what we just said, the mile of Iyu v'chayoyichad is that the Eibishter and the Sphira, the oir of the Sphira, it's not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, but it's oir u'moir. Mamash ein zach mamash. So by all the other spheres, that inyan is only nirgash in the oir. If you ask the oir within the spheres, ask oir HaChesed, oir HaBina, oir HaMalchus. If you ask the oir Shabbat spheres, what's your shaykhs to Iyu? They'll say, Iyu v'chayoyichad. Us and the Eibishter himself, us and Oir Sof, us and the Eibishter is Chad. But Iyu v'chayoyichad, not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, Chad mamish, Oir u'moir. If you ask the Kalim of the spheres, what's your shaykhs to the Eibishter himself? They'll say, Iyu v'gama yichad. Al terech nefesh v'guf. We are a Metzias, Take. We're a Metzias of Chachma, we're a Metzias of Chesed, we're a Metzias of Malchus. The Eibishter is Poshet B'tachlis Hapshitus. But we're Misached, Shnei Dvarim HaMisachdim, Al derech nefesh v'guf, and we become one Metzias. Ad she'yev shalachalik b'neiim. That's by the rest of the spheres. Mashenkin, by Chachma, there's a oimek. In Chachma, even in the Garmoihi, even in the Keli of Chachma, that's in the words of the Tzemach Tzedek in V'lo Yisashbis, even in the Keli of Chachma, herzich on the Iyu v'chayoyichad. If you ask Klei HaChachma, what do you feel? What's your shaykhs of the Eibishter? Chachma will not just tell you Iyu v'gama yichad. Won't just tell you hu v'chachma echad. It won't just tell you Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. In the Keli of Chachma, in the Metzias of Chachma, is nirgash the Iyu v'chayoyichad. The oifen of Chad, which is Chad mamish, al derech moir v'oir. That's not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. It's Chad mamish mitchilosi v'atzoifoi. That Chad with Iyu in Chachma is not just nirgash in the oir, that's nirgash also in the Keli. In the Keli itself is shoyre. That's the pshat. Shoyre ba'al kaponim ein so baruch hu atzmai. In the Keli of Chachma is shoyre, the inyan of Iyu v'chayoyichad. This is the Ilui, this is the Mailav in Perek Lamed Hey over Perek Beis. Nochamo. Perek Beis, hu v'chachma echad, that's the regular Iyu v'gama yichad. That the Eibishter and hu v'chachma echad, Iyu, the Eibishter himself and Chachma are Chad, al derech nefesh v'guf, shnei dvarim hamisachtim. That's all. But then, even after that, at the end of the day, there's a Metzias of Chachma. Because it's Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. So even after the Hisachtus, Sof Kol Sof, there's a Metzias. So in Perek Lamed Hey is Moisif noch tiefer, that in Chachma, in the Keli of Chachma, is Meir, not just the Iyu v'gama yichad. But in the keli of chachma, mitzad the goydel ha-bitul, mitzad the bitul of sfiras ha-chachma, mitzad the bitul shebeklei ha-chachma, is nirgash there, not just the ir v'gamoy yichad, it's nirgash the ir v'chayoy yichad. That chachma's his achdus with elikus, chachma's his achdus with Oirein Sof is not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, it's Chad Mamish, Ir V'chayoy Chad, Oir Moir. And that's Nirgash even in the Keli. To say there's no Metzias outside of the Eibishter. There's not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. We can't say Mikom Mokim Rak B'chinas Kli. There's no Kli. The Kli is not Nirgash at all. It's Chad Mamish, Oir Moir. And therefore, when we say that the neshama is nimshach from Chachma Ilah, what we have in that is not just hu v'chachmasei echad, but the neshama is coming from Chachma Ilah. We have in that in Chachma is Shoyre Oirein Sa Baruch Hu Atzmai, the Iyu v'chayoyi, that's also in Chachma. And so when the neshama is coming from Chachma Ilah, the neshama is not coming from Chachma, which is a metzias of a kli. That's coming from Chachma, which is Chad Mamish, with the Eibishter al derech Iyu v'chayoyi Chad, Oiru Moir, and that's where the Neshama comes from. So Ad Kan is the word from Isaiah, and with this, we can go back to our Sikha and explain it. In Orah 28. He was saying that as was, that Moshe's neshama comes from Chachma Datzilus Mamish. The Chachma yeshno kli, ela sha kli b'vchinas bitul betachlis k'moi ha'oir ad shenikra chayohi. So that line, sha kli b'vchinas bitul betachlis k'moi ha'oir ad shenikra chayohi, now we understand it. By all the other spheres, the kelim are not called chayohi. The kelim are called garmohi, meaning by all the other spheres, there his achdus with the Eibishter is only al derech Iyu v'garmoy yichad, Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. And if it's Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, then Sof kol Sof, even after the Iyu v'garmoy yichad, even after the Chad, but since it's Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, but noch bleiben a shtickl Metzias. Or in the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe in V'loi Sashmi, so mikomakim rak b'chinas Kli. There's going to be left a Metzias of a Kli, even after the Chad. Because it's Iyu v'garmoy yichad, Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. So that is by all the other spheres. Masha enkin by Chachma, the Keli is b'chinas bitul batachlis k'moi ha'or ad shenikra chayohi. Meaning, now we understand the Oimek HaDvarim. When we call the Keli chayohi, it's not just another name. We're saying that even in the Keli, Herzachon nisht nor the Hu v'chachmasei echad, nisht nor the Iyu v'garmoy yichad, not the Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim. No, the Keli is called chayohi. It's Herzachon in the Keli, the Iyu v'chayoyi Chad, that it's achdus with the Eibishter is Chad Mamish, k'moi Oiru Moir, not Shnei Dvarim HaMisachtim, but mitchilasei ein zach. That's pshat, that the Keli in Chachma, the Keli is called chayoyi, meaning the his achdus of the Keli with Ein Sof itself is Iyu v'chayoyi, Chad Mamish, Oiru Moir. And that's in Chachma, Nirgash, in the Keli of Chachma also. Why? Because the Keli of Chachma has the Maila Sabitul, and because the Maila Sabitul of Klei HaChachma, the Kelim of Chachma are margish, not just Iyu v'garmoy yichad, not just the Achdus al derech Nefesh v'guf, but even the Keli is margish the Achdus al derech Oiru Moir, the Iyu v'chayoyi yichad the Chad Mamish. That's the pshat here. And once we understand this, we can understand that when he says the b'chochma yeshnei keli, that's a חידוש. And he goes on to compare to the ois yud yeshnei tzuras ois. This is a חידוש. Because where we're holding now, once we understand that the keli is called chayohi, once we understand that the keli is al derech ha'oir, that in the keli is nirgash, in the keli is shoyre, iyu v'chayoyi chad mamish, al derech oiru moir. So the chayra, b'ashkafa rishayna, we wouldn't even say now that the b'chachma yeshnei kli. The inyan of kli the Chayra was totally in his battle. When we were thinking Hu v'chachma say echad, that it's Shnei Dvarim hamisachdim, then we understood, as we keep saying the Lashon, Mikol Mokim Mubchinas Kli. Even after the Hisachdus, even after saying Iyu v'garmo yichad, since it's Al Derech Nefesh v'guf Shnei Dvarim hamisachdim, so even after the Hisachdus, it remains Mikol Mokim Mubchinas Kli. But if we say Iyu v'chayo yichad, then it's Chad Mamish Al Derech Oyer Moyer, where the Oyer is not a Metzias La'atzmai. The Oyer is just his pashtas and his galus of the Moyer, which that's Yuvachayo Yichad. If I say that Gufa is Meir and Shoyre in the Keli of Chachma, so what am I saying? That even in the Keli of Chachma, Herzachon, Chad Mamish, Yuvachayo Yichad. So then L'chayra, there's no Keli anymore. The Metzias HaKli was totally in his battle. There's no Metzias. There's only There's only the Eibishter himself. It's Oir. So, in Pashtus then, once I say that in Chachma the Keli is called Chayoyi, that means that the Metzias HaKli is in Gans in his battle. However, says the Rebbe, no. At the end of the day, the B'chachma Yeshnei Kli. Even after this Ilui of saying that in the Klei HaChachma Herzach on Iyu v'chayo yichad, which l'chayra that would make us say that if that's the case, there's no longer a Metzias of a Kli. There's only a Metzias of a Kli when we have Iyu v'chayo yichad Shnei Dvarim hamisachdim. But once we introduce Iyu v'chayo yichad that it's Chad Mamish, that the Oyer is just the his pashtus and his galus of the Moyer, so there's nothing else besides the Moyer. So if that's Nirgash in Chachma, in Klei HaChachma, the Chayr is Eis Kli. But the Rebbe is saying no. Even after this, the B'chachma Yeshnei Kli. At the end of the day, even on this level, B'chachma Yeshnei Kli. Even on this level, fort, there's a Keli. So what's Pshat? So, back to the word that we said before from Isaiah Reb Nosson. After this whole thing, he said that the Lashon there of the Tzemach Tzedek in V'lo Yisashbis is that Mikol Makom Shoyre Bo Al Kol Ponim Ein So Baruch Hu. This Ilui that we're saying from Perek Lamed Hey, that in the Klei HaChachma is Nirgash, not just Iyu v'garmo yichad, but Iyu v'chayo yichad, the Lashon is at Shoyre. Mikol Makom Shoyre Bo. Shoyre is not the same as his slapshus. In other words, of these two Mailas in Chachma, the Vort in Perek Beis, Hu v'chachma sei echad, and the Vort in Perek Lamed Hey, yes, there's a Maila in the Vort in Perek Lamed Hey, but there's also a Maila in the Vort in Perek Beis. Why? Because the inyan of Hu v'chachma sei echad, the Iyu v'garmo yichad, the Achdus al derech nefesh v'guf, the Shnei Dvarim hamisachdim, that inyan is mislabish in the Keli of Chachma. So the Oifen ha'achdus of Iyu v'garmo yichad, Chachma has that in a way of his slapshus. It's one thing with the Metzias of Chachma. But the word of Perek Lamed Hey, that in the Keli of Chachma is Nirgash Iyu v'chayo yichad, the Oifen ha'achdus of Oyer Moyer, where it's Chad Mamish. So it's true that inyan is Meir in Chachma, but it's only Shoyre Ba'al Kol Ponim. It's not mislabish in Chachma. Chachma doesn't have this hakora, this hargosha of Iyu v'chayo yichad, which is felt within the Keli of Chachma. The Keli of Chachma doesn't have that in the way of his slabshus, it has it in the way of Shoyre, which is somewhat still above the capacity of Chachma. So it comes out there's a Maila in Perek Beis and there's a Maila in Perek Lamed Hey. The Maila in Perek Lamed Hey is it's a Hechere and Tifere inyan of Achdus. That in Klei HaChachma is not just Hu v'chachma sei echad, it's Chad Mamish Iyu v'chayo yichad. However, that inyan with Chachma, with the Metzias of Chachma itself, isn't Petachlis ha'isachtus. It's Shoyre in Chachma. That Hakara, that Hargosha is Shoyre in Chachma. So Chachma knows it. Chachma knows, the Keli of Chachma knows Iyu v'chayo yichad, but in the Neufen of Shoyre. not in oifen of islapshus. The mile of Perek Beis is, even though it's only hu v'chachma echad, it's only iu v'gamay echad, it's only shnei dvarim hamisachtim, but that oifen of achdus, of hu v'chachma echad, that's mislabish in chachma. Chachma mamish feels it in its bones. That chachma and that are mamish one. So b'meila, that's pshat here in the ha'ara. Even after saying that in chachma the keli is chayohi, that the keli is called chayohi, which we explain means that in the keli is nirgash, and the keli is meir, the inyan of iu v'chayohi chad, ad kadei kach, that the chayra, there's no shnei dvarim hamisachtim, there's no metzias of kli, there's only oir in sof, so I shouldn't be able to say the b'chachma yeshnei kli. However, since this inyan gufa isn't mislabish in chachma, it's only shayre in chachma. Chachma taka knows this inyan of iu v'chayohi chad, even in the keli of chachma. But chachma only knows it in an oifen of shayre, not in an oifen of islapshus. So since the inyan of iu v'chayohi chad isn't mislabish b'klei chachma, it's only shayre b'klei chachma. So for tzof kol sof, at the end of the day, in chachma is nishar b'chinas kli, b'chachma yeshnei kli, because the hakara of iu v'chayohi chad, which should be mevatel the kli, which is mevatel the kli, that hakara isn't mislabish b'toich mitziyusoi shel hachachma b'pnimiyus, it's only shayre b'chachma. So therefore, when chachma there remains sort of a mitziyus, there remains sort of a part of chachma, part of the klei chachma, where this inyan of iu v'chayohi chad isn't penetrating. So mikol makayim, so b'chachma yeshnei kli. That's the oimek advar, and that ties back into the bitul of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama comes from chachma d'atzilus mamash. So if pshat in chachma d'atzilus was that chachma d'atzilus is kulei bitul, al derech the of the word of Perek Lamed Hey, that it's that in the klei chachma is nirgash iu v'chayohi chad mamish, not shnei dvarim hamisachtim, in an oifen where the metzias hakli is bechlal non-existent, the metzias hakli is in ganzen his battle. So then Moshe Rabbeinu's anova would be in an oifen where he bechlal wasn't makir ma'alas atzmai. There would be no atzmai. There wouldn't be an inyan of makir ma'alas atzmai because there's no keli. It's tachlis habitul. However, the חידוש of the ha'ara is that even after saying that in chachma the keli is b'vchinas chayohi, however, the חידוש is mikol makayim the b'chachma yeshnei kli. Since this inyan of iu v'chayohi chad, which is within the kelim, is not mislabish in the keli, it's only shayre in the kli, so therefore there remains within chachma a kli. And therefore, when it comes to the anova of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's bleibt, as by Moshe Rabbeinu, there is the inyan of metzias. And that inyan of metzias is that it's makir ma'alas atzmai. Aber yachad ibzeh, within the klei chachma is shayre, taka not mislabish, but shayre, iyu v'chayohi chad, tachlitz habitul, bitul lagamri. And therefore Moshe was on of moed mikol ha'adam. And that's why he has to bring, it's nicht azay poshet. He brings sort of a asmachta, that chachma is nirmaz ba'is yud. Chachma is not nirmaz bekutzei shel yud. Kutzei shel yud is keser. That level of mamish tachlis habitul, that there's no keli at all, that's keser. Less mona b'hayatika, there's no kelim in keser. In keser taka, there's no kelim. In keser, it's tachlis habitul. So it's nirmaz in the kutzei shel yud. But chachma is nirmaz ba'is yud, to say that there is a tzuras ha'os, la'achri kol ha'yiluim, of understanding that even in the keli there's meir iu v'chayohi chad, but since it's only shayre in the keli, not mislabish in the keli, so therefore, at the end of the day, there is a tzuras ha'os. Chachma is nirmaz ba'is yud. There is shemoir al inyan ha-metzias. There is fort the inyan of metzias. But yachad im zeh, it's betachlis habitul.